I think that everyone can agree that Warhammer 3 had a pretty rough launch. Now, don't get me wrong, it wasn't a Cyberpunk 2077 or a No Man's Sky launch, but it wasn't that great either. The base game was not that great, and more importantly, Warhammer 3 launched without Immortal Empires. For the uninitiated plebeians in my audience, Immortal Empires is the massive combination of all the maps and races from the 3 Warhammer games. Most people, myself included, clowned on the base game. Sure, it looked pretty, but the actual game mechanics were rough. Even players who did enjoy it didn't really feel like it was that replayable. In April 2022, shortly after release, Warhammer 3 had over 20,000 concurrent players on Steam. But within a month, Warhammer 2, the previous game in the series, had a higher player count. Understandably, most Warhammer fans were waiting for Immortal Empires. Fast forward 10 months, and the state of the game is absolutely incredible. In August, Creative Assembly finally released Immortal Empires, and the player base skyrocketed. Now we could finally fight the new demons as our favorite factions, like Crackhead Rats, Undead Pharaohs, or even the Golden Chat himself. Supreme! I mean, just look at all these races. It's beautiful. If you own all the DLC, how many playable factions do you think you get? I'll save you a lot of time counting. It's 86. When Creative Assembly dumped all the races into the massive combined map, they played a little musical chairs with everyone's starting location. Now, simple campaigns like Grumbrindle, Volkmar, and Alberic come with completely new starting locations. I mean, just look at Cetra's campaign. His starting position didn't really change, but everyone around him did. His first threat used to be the top-notch greenskins, but now Manfred is to the south and will declare war on you before turn 10. Turns out you don't even have to worry about the top-knots anymore because of Skarbrand. Skarbrand will immediately conquer them, and then you'll never guess what the follower of Khorne does next. Seriously, you'll never. He declares war on you. Now you've got a war with Skarbrand to the north, Thorg and Krokkar to the east, Manfred and Tic-Tac-Toe are to the south, and Volkmar is to the west. No matter which way you expand, there are 2 or more legendary lords lining up to fight you. It's complete chaos, and I love it. Implementing all the old war races into the new mechanics of Warhammer 3 wasn't easy. I mean, just look at all these patch notes. It just keeps going. And this isn't even all the patch notes. This is just 2.0. The devs just released patch 2.3, and Immortal Empires is still in beta, so you know they're going to keep tweaking it in patch 2.4. I'm not going to bore you with all the patch notes, but here are some of the biggest changes. The Warriors of Chaos factions have settlements now. Battles at minor settlements without tier 3 walls result in field battles instead. This keeps the player from burning out from too many drawn-out siege battles, and provides more of what Total War does best, taking my hard-earned money. I meant to say field battles. Also, every legendary lord now starts out with the siege attacker trait. You know, I seem to remember a pretty cool YouTuber bringing this up, and I think that's all the changes. But, you know, I feel like I'm forgetting something.
It's me, your arch nemesis.
Raving Gambles? I thought you died.
Nope.
I was biding my time, waiting for you to develop a false sense of security so you would drop your guard and I could delete this YouTube video. So long, sucker. Waiting for you to develop a false sense of security so you would drop your
Now,
guard.
why does that remind me of something? In-game scenarios. Now there are a ton of potential apocalyptic in-game scenarios to provide an extra challenge towards the end of your campaign. There are currently 6 potential in-games. The Black Pyramid scenario creates a massive hostile army at the Black Pyramid. If one of the Vampire Counts or Tomb Kings possess the Black Pyramid, their faction will get a ton of armies and target you. A Grudge Too Far involves all of the Dwarf factions spawning tons of armies and going on a murderous rampage for that one time you accidentally bumped into them on the bus. It doesn't matter what your relations are with the dwarves or how many of them are still on the map when the scenario starts. All of the end games revive dead factions and make all the factions in question hostile. Just an FYI, the default settings prevent you from doing any diplomacy with these factions during the endgame. The biggest wah involves the Green Tide, flooding out of every green skin starting region. The Wild Hunt involves the Wood Elves pouring out of all the forest regions, especially Athelloren. Vampiric Ascension creates hordes of armies from every vampire starting region. And finally, the newest endgame creates a Vermintide of Skaven. They should definitely make an action video game about that. Now, if you're high on that sweet, sweet Warpstone, you can select Ultimate Crisis Mode, which will enable all of the endgames simultaneously. Otherwise, the game will randomly pick one of the selected options. I left the settings on default before playing a Gelt campaign, and the game decided to pick the Wild Hunt option, but I never got a warning message. I played 2 Karl Franz campaigns with the same endgame just to double check, and I think it's bugged because I never got a warning message for the scenario. For reference, the warning will look something like this. My other problems with the game include the devs nerfing campaign movement traits and the fact that I can't move Gelt out of the Elector Count of Solent. And honestly, those gripes aren't that big at all. The rest of this video is dedicated to how you can play Immortal Empires. Right now, you need to buy all 3 $60 games to play Immortal Empires. Now you're probably thinking, hold on, I just paid $60 for Warhammer 3. What if I just want to play Immortal Empires with the Warhammer 3 factions? And you're not alone. The community already has a petition with over 30,000 signatures asking Creative Assembly to implement this change. The goal is to make Immortal Empires, the best version of Warhammer, more accessible to newer players. The devs haven't commented on this petition yet, but they're aware of it, so the more signatures we get, the better. Now, if you don't want to wait another day to start playing Immortal Empires, I have links in the description where you can get Steam keys for all 3 Warhammer games at 20% off. That's $36 in savings. If that's still too expensive for you, and I totally get it, I've seen Warhammer 1 and 2 have Steam sales from 50 to 90%, but I don't know when the next one will be. Don't worry about buying the DLC, just download all the free DLC and only consider the paid DLC if you get tired of the literal thousands of hours of content you now have. That's the whole video. It's a great game. Go buy it. What are you waiting for? Why are you still here? Go buy the game. Consumer culture, capitalism, consume, money.